Yo, what's going on everybody? It's MF Buddy and I'm back with another video to help you master your Zero Build gameplay. So there is an art to endgame in Fortnite Zero Build, but for a lot of people, the pressure of that endgame tends to end up making them crumble. And if you are somebody who finds yourself crumbling under that pressure, I made this video to help you out. In this video, I'm going to talk all things endgame. I'm hoping to give you a few keys that'll really help you to enhance and master your Zero Build gameplay moving forward. But what I want to tell you is this. What I'm going to share with you is not some made up tip. This is what I use in every single game, and I know that it'll help you out if you truly apply it. So I'm going to have some footage playing in the background of a recent endgame, but more than anything, I hope that the tips and the content help you to grow, and I hope that there's something that you can take from this. So let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the game that you're seeing, but I'm also just going to talk about endgame in general, and my hope is that it just provides a lot of value for you. So obviously endgame is kind of the final four circles. You know, it's when the storm starts to tick for a lot more. There's less and less players, obviously, so it's a stressful situation. The zone is shrinking, the storm is right on your back, and there's a lot of quick decision making that has to happen. But I want to share with you just a few anchors that you can use when you're going into endgame to kind of help you focus in on what's important and what's not. So with that being said, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is strategic positioning. So when you're playing endgame, your position matters a ton, and honestly, you can have some of the worst loot in the game, but as long as you're in the right spot, you can literally work wonders from that position. And with the antennas, the satellite towers, whatever they're called, with them being in the game now, it's honestly easier and honestly more easy than ever to make sure that you have the right position. I mean, even in this game right here, you can see we're rotating ahead because we know where the next zone is going to be. But in endgame, position is probably more important than any point in the game. It's the biggest advantage that you can have in endgame is the right position. What I like to say is, in endgame, your position is your power. I mean, you literally could have a gray shotgun and a gray twin mag, and as long as you have the right position, you're honestly set up to win that fight. But, you know, some little tricks that I use in every single game is, it's a little tactic that I call early in, late out. And what I mean by that is, going into a lot of endgames, what I'll do is I'll try to get into the next zone early and before everybody else. And what I want to do is position myself in the new zone, looking back to everybody that might be rotating in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find whose rotation is kind of vulnerable and not that good, and I'm going to pick them off, or I'm going to try to do a lot of damage on them and let somebody else third party it and eliminate that person. The next part of it really only works if I have the right heals and mobility in my inventory, but it's called late going out. And so what I'll do is, again, I'll go early into the zone, and then I will wait for everybody to rotate in, and then I'll actually tank a little bit of storm. But because, say, I have splashes or slurps, I can be late going out of that zone. So I'll then pop a slurp or, you know, use some splashes. But then what I want to do is I actually want to see if there's anybody else, probably the last person rotating in, because I'm in storm. They have no idea. I'm going to beam them, get a free kill. But then what I'm going to do is use that mobility, and I'm going to flip again to the far side of the next zone, so I can repeat what I just did. So early going in, kill everybody or take some pics of people that are coming into the new zone. And then once everybody's in, flip to the backside of the next zone and do it all over again. The second tip or key that I want to share with you guys is just to prioritize the right loot. Again, in endgame, people are dying. There's a lot of loot everywhere. By endgame, you should have good enough weapons as far as rarity goes. But I don't want people to get distracted or get hung up on the right thing. So let's say you got rebooted and you only have like a green shotgun and a green twin mag. In endgame, honestly, it's more than enough, again, if you have the right positioning. So really the main things that you should be prioritizing in endgame is mobility, heals, and utility. Now for heals, I think realistically there's a few things to focus on. So you obviously have the slaps, you have slurps, and believe it or not, med miss is actually really good as well. I don't necessarily think that grabbing minis and big pots is a great idea. A lot of times in endgame, you end up tanking a lot of storm, and minis and big pots aren't going to give you white health. They're just going to give you shield. There are times that I use minis, but again, what I value is in order. I would value, legendary slurps, splashes, and then med mist, maybe even med mist in number 2, to be honest, because there is a lot of times where you end up in storm. For mobility, obviously there's a lot of mobility in the game. I personally end up favoring shockwaves over everything. I think that there's an extreme amount of versatility with the shockwaves. You're going a lot faster when you shockwave horizontal or vertical versus a rocket. And I know that when people use the rocket ram on me, I end up grilling them and knocking them out of the sky. But I don't tend to get a ton of knocks when people shockwave, unless they're like soaring sprints straight up in the air. But again, it's a personal choice. If you're going to use the rocket ram, you just need to make sure that you're going more horizontal than you are vertical to make yourself harder to hit. With utility, we have the mythic ice hands and we have the bunkers in the game at the moment. I lean towards bunkers. In this game right here, I have the ice hands probably because I didn't find bunkers, but I have seen the ice hands bug out like a lot. You go to use them and the ice doesn't appear, or it puts it weird on the map. Whatever the case may be, I think that bunkers tend to be a little bit more reliable. But again, with the mythic hands, you have the 10-second cooldown, you have infinite uses, so it can be extremely powerful. So that again does come down to like a personal choice. Another tip with endgame is choosing the right fights. So in endgame, it's important to understand that because the zone is so small, there's nothing that you can't do that won't go unnoticed. So in endgame, every action has an almost immediate positive and an immediate consequence as well. There is like little internal things that I've developed over time. And in endgame, if you start shooting at somebody, you probably have about 3 to 5 seconds before the next person is going to hop on you and try to third party. So there should be this little internal alarm going off that once you've shot at somebody for more than like 5 seconds, that might be even a little bit long as well. But you need to tell yourself, I haven't killed this opponent, quick enough, and I need to stop shooting and stop making noise. In endgame, the attention on you is not necessarily a good thing. In fact, it's a bad thing, especially if there's like, 3 people left in the game or 3 teams left in the game, and now all those people are looking at you instead of looking at each other. So remember, sometimes you have to play with tactics in mind. You have to be smart. If I can't get a quick elimination, a lot of times I'll back off it unless it's the last team. Another tip as well when it comes to choosing the right fights, here's a little tactic that I'll do if I have a really good positioning and there's somebody that's about to contest me or something like that. Sometimes I'll just beam them out of the air, not necessarily with the intention to eliminate them or go push them if I crack them, but if I have a really good position, what I'm trying to do is defend the position that I'm in. You'll hear comp players call it bullying somebody. So you can bully them for a position or bully them from taking your position. But either way, the whole idea is that you're not necessarily shooting to kill, but shooting to defend your position. All in all, when it comes down to endgame, the main thing is getting enough reps in endgame that you start to understand how it all works, how it all plays out. The biggest tip that I can give people is to really just understand that the most important thing out of everything is just having the right position and having the next position in mind of where you're gonna go. In endgame fights, a lot of times just straight up 50-50s end up being a really bad idea. Specifically in endgame, you really have to be aware that you need to end your fights quickly. If you've been fighting somebody in endgame for longer than 10 seconds, you have been fighting too long, and you either need to wrap the fight up like that moment, or you need to consider getting out of it and resetting and repositioning. I think when it comes to endgame, the most important thing to understand, as much as I don't like this, is you don't want to be the first person fighting. You want to be the last person fighting. When you hear two teams starting to fight each other, as ratty as it is, that's actually the best time to hurry up and get in there, clean it up quick, and then make sure that you're positioned waiting for the next team to rotate or the next zone to appear so you can go ahead and rotate as well. There's also like some advanced things that start to happen as you grow and playing more end games, and that comes down to, you know, when do I rotate? Do I go in early or do I go in late? That ends up becoming like kind of a gut decision. You know, I personally like to go in early if I'm already like very close to the next zone and I know that there is like a high ground position in the next zone. I'll go in early if I know that there's like a quote unquote God spot in the next zone, and I'll set up. But there's also sometimes where I'll intentionally go in late because I know that there's about to be a bunch of people rotating by me who are going to be like desperate to get into the next zone. But that comes down to knowing that in my inventory, I have 2 slurps, I have 6 shock waves, and I know that I can recover from that decision to go in late. I know that I can reposition even if I'm coming into the new zone and somebody's already there to try to eliminate me. So if my inventory and my loot looks strong, I can, you know, risk going into the zone late, risk getting shot at, because more than likely I can get away and I can make a play to get a better position. All in all, when it comes down to endgame, just know this, that there's no magic to all this. A lot of this just comes down to game sense of doing this over and over and over again. And you know, there's a certain person that I was one-on-one coaching just yesterday, and we were talking about game sense, and what I said to him is this: you'll see that Fortnite is a game that repeats itself over and over and over again. So when people say, I want to develop game sense, you know, what they're really saying is, I want to understand how the game works and what I should do in each situation. So the more that you play this game, the more that you'll develop game sense, because these same situations tend to unfold over and over again, just with slight different variations. Just know this: as things start to happen in endgame, just pick up on the patterns of what tend to happen, right? Do people, you know, when the zone is ending, say in the jungle, right? What direction do people tend to come from? Are they pouring in from Mega City? Are they pouring in from, you know, the gas station by Bastion? Just take notes of these things, because you'll see that people tend to do the exact same things over and over. Like if you watch anybody stream, you know, 9 times out of 10, they drop the exact same spot and do the exact same rotation every single time. If a bunch of, you know, streamers are doing that, that means everybody's doing that. So eventually you develop prediction just based off analytics. That's what I encourage people to do, is just be a student of analytics in the game. Be a student of observing, where do people come from? You know, what do they tend to do? Because if they've done it once, they'll do it again. And the more you do that, the more you'll be ready to be proactive instead of reactive in endgame. So with that being said, that is gonna wrap this video up. If you found this video helpful or informative, make sure to like, leave a comment below, and let me know which tip was most helpful for you. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more Zero Build content just like this. My name is MF Buddy. I'm out. I hit the mic, but GG's. I'll talk to y'all soon. Later.